tentpole Exhibit A episodes where we bring in the best guests to share their top 10 tips for law firm owners across the country. Obviously, we've curated this list as much as possible, which is why you're getting the Kristen David from Upleveling Your Business here to share her top 10 tips. Kristen is a lawyer, has had a firm, runs a coaching company, checks so many of the boxes that we're all looking for when it comes to getting some awesome insight. And she's kind enough to give us a free hour here sharing her top 10 tips. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It's always fun to talk to you. All right. So for those of you that watched last week's episode, we had Emily Hurstcorn on to talk about the 7 levels of a leadership framework for your law firm. And the coolest part about that, if you didn't check it out, is level 7 is not necessarily the best. Level 1's probably usually the worst, but in between those, there are different times where you can be in different levels. You know, it's that old age of caring just the right amount to take it seriously and not caring too much that you grind yourself down. So a very interesting conversation, a very interesting perspective. And then also Emily goes into some of the stuff that she has going on in her group. So definitely, if you haven't, check out that episode after this, because right now we've got Kristen here. So Kristen, if you want to fill in anything else a little bit on the bio, I know you talk about it a ton. I know we've talked about it a ton, but for anybody who, for whatever reason, doesn't know you, 1, congrats, they've gotten to meet you now. But 2, give them a little bit of the rundown if you can.
So I'm a lawyer by trade. Law school didn't teach me how to run a business like a business. I was working 85 plus hours a week as a trial lawyer. I did legal malpractice defense and medical malpractice defense. And just kept thinking there's gotta be a better way. Like, this is miserable. Like, no one taught us how to manage people, marketing, sales, like the financials. And so ultimately started seeking out different programs and things to teach myself how to do this, and built up my business, doubled in 9 months after writing a business plan, rewrote that business plan, doubled again to 1.4 million. And the best part was building those systems. And that's what allowed me to step away, take 3-week-long vacations. And my firm actually was making more money when I was gone than when I was home. So
I know that feeling.
Yep, there you go. And so I'm very passionate about systems help us be able to enjoy running a firm, but also empower people to step up and do an amazing job and let the business thrive. So that's what we do now. I sold the law firm. I've been coaching for a number of years and have helped thousands of business owners. And I still to this day just am passionate about giving biz nuggets so people can hear something, implement it, and start moving forward.
I love it. And for anybody that doesn't know the full breadth of the story, so as a legal malpractice attorney, Kristen would have to go in and retry these cases to make sure that you could get the different result or get the same result or whatever, from that standpoint to prove the malpractice. And so it's so crazy to me that you yes, that's the area of law you were doing, but you had to know all these other areas of law. And then now with the company, you're working with attorneys in all areas of law. So this information is coming to you all as a great cross-section of a number of different options of potential types of practice.
Absolutely. And I will say, add on to that, one of the things we would see is that blown statute of limitations didn't happen yesterday. It wasn't caused yesterday or last week. It was caused 2 years ago because we didn't have a good system in place to document those and set those deadlines and those reminder dates and such. So with legal malpractice, it was you'd see the effect of the malpractice was caused way back here. And I also will say, I loved being a trial lawyer. It was the wild, wild west in Oregon. We had no discovery of experts. So you had to really think on the toes of your feet and be ready for anything. So I am looking forward to this interview because I'm sure you're going to pepper me with some good questions.
But that being said, you provided your top 10 list. So I want to dive into number 1 because it's awesome. I mean, this is something that I think all of us need to put as number 1 so that we can do what comes here. So start us off.
Tip number 1, build a business you enjoy. Seriously, I saw so many miserable lawyers doing things they didn't enjoy. And that's where you the misery goes to that you don't want to do the work product isn't the best that you're capable of doing. It just sucks away that daily joy of living, and often that's where malpractice starts to happen because you kept pushing it off, and then you miss a deadline, or you're not getting paid on it, so there's no desire to work on a case you're not getting paid on. And so listen, pick what you enjoy, like get in there. Who are your favorite clients you like to work with that make you smile? What are the different types of work you like to do? Don't do litigation if you don't like, contested arguments. Find what makes you smile.
And I love that you talked about it from the client perspective first. Because honestly, like I've had this, I've changed my opinion on this. I used to think like you want to get an idea of your kind of work first. But now I think, no, it's your kind of person. Like, who do you want to work with? And then figure out what work will come from them. Because I think that's so much easier to do what you have here in tip number 1.
Yeah. Make it enjoyable. There you go.
Here's my question before we move on to 2. How does a lawyer know that it's working?
I think sometimes it's just the calendar test. Take a look at your calendar for the next 2 weeks and see the names on there and who makes you smile and who makes you want to like cringe or roll over and like, how can I push that out and punt it? I saw your name on here last night, Jordan. I was like getting ready for today and I was like, yay. Like I was super excited.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure which way you were going on that one.
No, so you want to you're like, look at your calendar and who makes you like, oh, I can't wait to spend an hour with that person. Like you just there's certain people and clients that you love getting on with. Well, then break it down. Let's analyze like what's the commonality with those people that you love. They usually listen to you. They take your advice. They are prompt with responses. These are like the A+ clients, but sometimes you really want to help a person through. Sometimes you need a professional who's just like, do it, so maybe you're more of a hand holder and that feeds your soul to kind of help a person through the journey. And other times you just need a straight shooter, right? You just want somebody that's like, tell me what I need done. So we all like working with different people. So just use your calendar as that litmus test and see who makes you smile.
And you will find the weirdest commonalities between the clients. Like if you've got you've got that core 10 clients you genuinely like, maybe it's they all came to you with the same kind of case. Maybe it's they all found you the same way. Maybe they all have the same job. Maybe they're of similar age. I don't know. But like really break it down in a bunch of these things because you'll find the weirdest commonalities. They'll always come from the same referral source. They'll always have the same specific need. They'll always, whatever it's going to be. It's just fascinating to me.
It is. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Number 2.
Please don't try to do it all yourself. This is where you get burned out. This is where I used to parachute into law firms and see people that were just miserable trying to do it all. And they're thinking, I'm saving $50, or they're thinking, well, if I have to pay someone else, I'm not getting that money. No, you're getting back your sanity. You're getting back. And if you hire appropriately, they should make you at least a 3-time return on investment. So 1/3 goes to paying for themselves, 1/3 goes to helping you pay for overhead, and 1/3 goes to profit that you can either take or reinvest in the company. So every hour of every person on your team should be making the business a profit, right? It should be doing good. But so often people try to do it all themselves to save money, or they think they have to do it all themselves because they don't really have any systems to delegate people to do things. And they think, well, if I hire someone, they won't know what to do. Well, yes and no. Like hire them, train them, have that person write the system. Voila. Now we've got some systems started. So I think that is absolutely one of the key parts of growing a firm that you're proud of is learning to delegate. Don't try to do it all yourself.
Yeah, I had there's an attorney who posted like, oh, my firm's been open for whatever. And in that time, I've learned to do SEO and I made my website and I've done this and I've done that, like 25 different things. And it was so hard for me not to be like, I'm sorry, like I'm sorry you had to go through that, because they were saying it from the standpoint of, I've learned so much. And I'm thinking from the standpoint of like, but how could you be an expert in 25 of these different things? Whereas if you had brought in, if you'd hired somebody for this one, if you had brought an outside for that, if you had hired a VA for this part, you could have focused on being a lawyer, generating business, leading a firm, building a team, building the systems, whatever it's going to be. Like there's a million jobs to be done. This helps you find the ones that are the right ones for you to be the one doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then I love to get all of this together. We kind of have to hold ourselves accountable with number 3.
Number 3, set deadlines. I'm a big fan of saying a dream is just a dream until it gets on a calendar. Like you gotta set a deadline so everyone knows like you're on a mission to get things finished, not just started. So this is something that I see a lot with individual solos, with small teams, big teams. I mean, across the board, an owner will be like, hey, brilliant idea of the day. And everyone's like, okay. But then there's no follow-up. There's no like, okay, who shall do what by when? Let's all work to get this done by Friday and this other thing done by the following Friday. Like break it into 3 parts and just make a deadline every Friday for the next 3 Fridays. Like it's that simple. But this is what is the missing link, I think, so often to growing a firm that you're going to enjoy and be proud of is instead of ideas all the time and dreams, like let's get it on a calendar. So set deadlines. That is absolutely tip number 3. You will get so many more projects finished that way.
You know my least favorite word in the English language? You want to take a guess?
Calendar?
No, I love my calendar. Priorities. Priorities. Priority is supposed to be singular. It's supposed to be the one thing, but we find this way to have all of our priorities in order, which is the opposite of the purpose of the word. So when you have those deadlines, that lets you know what's the priority. If this thing is due today, this has to be done first or by the end of the day. If this thing is due next week, I can do that 1 second if I have extra time. And so I feel like we get caught in this, work-life balance, have all our priorities in check, when there's no way to do that, because when push comes to shove, you don't know what's the most important thing, whereas a deadline gives you that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm going to start using that.
By all means. All right. And I love this one. For number 4, we're talking about, having kind of not necessarily end goal in mind, but like building something that is going to work for a while.
So tip number 4 is develop marketing that's going to grow with you. So listen, start out with what you can handle and develop a strategy and a messaging and channels. And don't think you have to be like all the way to step 7, right? Like know what you're going to do and then say, I'm going to add on additional marketing vehicles or different things as you go. So let me give a quick example for people that aren't quite sure what I'm talking about. Your goal is to really become known as the guru in the community and the area, and everybody sees and hears you in all different ways. So maybe that just starts off with 3 social media posts a week, right? Just regularity. And then the next step is we're going to add a weekly news or a monthly newsletter or every 2 weeks or something. Then you're going to maybe add in something that's a community-based item. Then you're going to add in something that's like a blog to start building and doing. And then you're going to start adding in, right? You keep going. You don't just fire sale and try to get it all done and wear yourself out and then do nothing. And the other thing that goes with this, and I'm sure you've seen this, is a lot of lawyers will market, and then they get a ton of clients. And then they're in the trenches and they don't market at all. And then they market, and they get a bunch of clients, and then they're in the trenches and they don't market at all. And it's like a washing machine cycle. Like they just keep going through it. And I've got to say, this is why it helps to hire a marketing company to help you stay consistent, or have maybe a marketing assistant doing part of it and a marketing company doing part of it. It's going to hold that accountability. So developing that marketing that will help you grow, but having some accountability so your team keeps doing those same great things. You and I could talk for an hour on this.
And I'm sure, and we have, but all right, I'm gonna drop a secret for everybody who's listening or watching this. I have a full-on marketing company. I don't practice any legal work. I'm still not happy with any of my own marketing. It did 1.1, 1.2 to 1.5 last year, just like my personal social media between the two companies. I still have 1,000 ideas for stuff I want to do differently. We still have so much backlog information. We still have a plan to do twice as much content as we're doing, but we got that much done to get that much done, to know what to make the next tweaks, to know what works, have a better idea. So like, don't ever think this will be perfect, but please allow that to like be liberating to you. Allow that to let you free you up to try new things and give it a shot and put in the effort, as opposed to thinking like, I need to be Gary V tomorrow.
Yeah. I think the other part to that is, again, back to those systems, like marketing systems. Figure out your social media strategy, timing, hire that marketing assistant. I mean, I've got dozens of clients that have gotten get staffed up marketing assistants who now crank that wheel every single month, like every week. It's smooth. It goes out. Then we build in the newsletter, and then we build in the next part. And next thing you know, the owner, yes, you have to help with content and final reviews. But now instead of that spending 10 hours a month, it's 1 hour of editing or something like that. And so it just, that now you freed up 8-9 hours of time to like get to that next project. And I will agree, like, I'm no judgment, myself as well. Like, the marketing that worked a year ago has changed, and now we're trying new things. And so you're always innovating, you're always pivoting and adapting. But the biggest thing is develop marketing that's going to grow with you, and that's going to help, be that foundation and build off of that.
And look, and here's, if you wake up, you have the stroke of genius overnight and you want to completely change everything, you can always make that change, but don't think that you have to market now as this perfect product, as this final thing, as this gigantic firm. Like, do the things that make the most sense, and then you can add on more things. You can grow from there. You can build on top of this, as long as you continue to want the same things out of your firm, or the same kind of cases, or the same kind of clients, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Important
Absolutely.
caveat. How do we pay for this?
Tip number 5, you've got to be a good money manager. Now, this is where I get frustrated with a lot of lawyers who grow, and they create debt. And it's like, no, you've always got to be meticulous with your clients' money. You got to be meticulous with your own money. You've got to really pay attention to where your profit margin is, and what the profit is. What, it's not just the money you put in your pocket. It's what gives you opportunities. It gives you that ability to say yes when something pops up and you're like, oh, I want to try that, right? That marketing that you want to do, that, new trip, that's conference you want to go to, where you're going to meet new people and network and bring in more business. And so being a good money manager, absolutely one of the vital parts of building a business you're proud of. We've got to show our clients that we respect money. We've got to, really send that positive message to our team, to the community. Like, we are a solid, stable business. We are not like constantly, oh my God, we're going to have to fire everyone and close the doors, right? No one wants to work with that company, for that company, or with that company. So you've got to practice being a good money manager. And sometimes that just means set aside an hour or two a week to look at your numbers, be responsive, work on that. Don't be scattered all over through the week. Just pick an hour every Thursday morning is what I do. So be a good money manager.
There we go. And I'm sure you see the same thing. I talk to so many lawyers who are like, I want to have $1 million firm. How can I do that? And I'm always like, spend $1 million. That's how you can be $1 million firm. I'm assuming you want to be profitable and put some money in your pocket. So then it becomes like a more serious question. But like, that's the most common thing I see, is this like gross revenue number. without the interest of what that takes or how that plays out. Which is why I got to give a shout out to you all for the financial systems workshop. Like, you've got spreadsheets that break this stuff down, that do the 3 or 4x for the employees, that go through, profitability across these things. Like, a couple grand paying for something like that, if you have nothing in place right now, will save you tens of thousands of dollars. Trust me. Or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Trust me.
Well, and I will also do a shout out to, we've got amazing financial coaches on our team, Terrell Turner, Marie Hughes, amazing individuals. They both run their own bookkeeping companies. They get it. They understand how to simplify it down and make it easy for business owners to understand their numbers so that they can then ask for what they need from their bookkeeping companies or CPAs. So, part of being a good money manager is like learning that base. Chelsea Williams does a great job of helping train attorneys and educating them and really getting them to think about their profit margins and, being that CFO at times to like really make people step up and pay attention to their numbers. So I love seeing individuals out there helping remind us all to be good money managers.
And I'm going to say true story, but I'm going to make this vague that it applies to like 20 different people. So it's always interesting to me because, like, obviously from a marketing perspective, there are so many numbers that are easy to find, cost of we build systems to make it easy to find cost of acquisition, close rate, average case value, yada, yada, yada. But what ends up happening is at some point, if you've identified, 3 different kinds of cases you get across 3 different kinds of channels of advertising or whatever it is, if you don't know the profitability, you don't know which of those 9 options is the one that you should focus on. And so, like, there's so many firms that we've worked with that were like, oh yeah, I love these, $10,000 immigration asylum cases. And then you figure out from a profitability standpoint, they make, $500 off of those by the end of it through everything they go through. Whereas, an EB-5 visa, they might charge less for, but it's 20% more profitable. And so having these money numbers the entire way through allows you to look at like what's coming in on the front end and have a better control system because you know where it comes out on the back end, being money in your pocket, money in your bank account, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I love you touched on the marketing that will grow with you. We touched on building our team, but I think number 6 is the key to so much of this because we can't, what got you here won't necessarily get you there.
Yeah. So tip number 6 is equip your team to innovate. Like, it shouldn't all come from you as an owner. It really, you want to build people up and empower them to share their ideas and do it in a structured way where you can easily give review and give feedback. But we want to let them bring things forward. And listen, there's plenty of times my team has come to me. My marketing team does it all the time. They come up with these amazing ideas, but then we're like, okay, but let's look at the next 5-6 months of the calendar. We really don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. So let's layer that in August or October, right? And so, sometimes those ideas they're right ideas, but not right now ideas. But for your team, you want to let them, especially with those policies and procedures, they might be like, hey, I know we've been doing steps 1 through 7, but if we did it this way, we could go straight from step 4 to step 7. Like, why aren't we using this technology, or why aren't we doing this? And they give us great ideas that save us time, save us money. And frankly, now they're going to kind of self-monitor and police it because it was their idea, right? And they're more willing to follow it to make sure it works well. So getting your team to innovate and come forward with ideas and help change the policy and procedure to fit those new plans, such a win-win-win in all directions.
And I will share I want to phrase this the right way. This was like the simplest idea that anyone on my team had that saved the most time. So we changed how we do our employee evaluations to make them less specific on the questions and more like, what have we been doing that's been great? What have we been doing that we should stop? What roadblocks do you find? And somebody was like, I spend so much time writing out our address. Because from the PI firm side, we have so much certified mail for requesting records and this and that and the other, and they were writing it out. And they're like, can we just get, stickers or a stamp? And oh my God, if that $20 stamp hasn't saved like 150 hours by this point, it was like mind-boggling. And and look, I got to be honest, addressing mail is my kryptonite. I do not know which side the stamp goes on. My dad worked for the post office. He literally delivered mail for his job, and I cannot write out a letter without truly thinking about the stamp on the right side, return address on the top left. Every time. It's like, I would never do that one because I avoid addressing mail. But it was such an important thing and such a slight innovation that saved so much time, that made it so much easier, that made it, more consistent. And you'll take that same idea, and then there'll also be things like, oh, what if we marketed this way? And next thing you know, it's $1 million, it attracted $1 million case just as easily as the stamp for our address.
So I've got a similar one for a different practice area for estate planning lawyers. At signings, there's probably like 15 places you got to put, maybe it depends on how big the estate plan is, but then you got to put the date, right? And it is so much easier to just get a date stamp. And that way they go through and stamp all the places where the date needs to be. So it's all uniform, nothing gets missed. And that way it's just done. So when the client sits down to sign, they're not having to do that extra step. And it's so quick and easy for the staff to like get that prepped in advance. It is a huge time saver.
There we go. It's like little things like that, but 1,000 of those little things add up to a completely different firm or a completely different client experience. Like, it is amazing to see how these things snowball in a good way, dovetail, I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
All right, so now I think that goes right into number 7, because like ultimately we've got people with these ideas, but we need number 7 to make sure it's the right stuff or it's implemented the right way.
So tip number 7, create open lines of communication. So what do I mean by that? With your team, you've got to set some levels of like, how can they get in contact with you? When should they come to you? When should they go to other team members? So there's a couple elements here. Number 1, have a hierarchy of at least a little bit. Like, when do things need to come to you as the owner? That like, hey, if anybody on the team here heard in my law firm the word malpractice, right? Come to me immediately, whether it was said by a client, whether it was uttered by a paralegal. Like, tell me if you think that there's going to be malpractice in our business. Do not stop and collect $200. Come straight to me, right? But it's also learning to have the team develop communication so that they can connect with one another, and head off any issues, because Slack or email can feel cold and like it's hard to read the tone, and you don't hear that smile in the voice sometimes. And so somebody is like, well, so-and-so's snapping at me on Slack. Well, how do you know they're snapping at you? Yeah, they're trying to get it done, but you're reading into between the lines that there's some emotion that may or may not be there. And so real quick, I'll share a good thing to do is create a hierarchy as well with what types of communication. So what is Slack used for, or direct messaging? When do they use an email? When do they jump on a Zoom or Huddle or Teams call, right? And should it be video or just voice, right? I think I run a virtual company. I think it's great to have just some FaceTime, a smile. How are you doing? To build that develop that team. And then when to text somebody or, pick up a phone and call them, right? Like, have a little structure of what to do. Quick story, as my team started growing, I now have like 23 plus people, but when my team started growing past 10, I had 2 people using WhatsApp. I had 2 people using text, 3 people using Slack, 1 person using Asana. I was losing my shit. Like, I was like, oh my God, where do I go to find information anymore? And I was like, we got to get clear on this, everybody. This is the primary form of communication for X. And it totally simplified things. So yes, create open lines of communication and encourage those open lines, and be responsive when someone says, hey, Kristen, I need to talk to you. Like, yes, what can I'll give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't shut them down. What do you think?
Yes, totally. And when there's like, I find if you are specifically giving feedback, your paralegal sends you a document, or in my case, a video editor sent me a video. I prefer responding with Loom or a Google Meet video rather than just typing it out. I can show them the clip. I can go through that stuff. I can highlight it. But also what you said about the tone, especially if you're remote, or especially if people aren't in the office at the same time, or especially if you're reviewing this at home at 8 o'clock at night and to come back in the office the next day, that tone will come up so much better. It will come up so much differently than like just typing away on, I can't believe you left this on, at 37 seconds in, it says blah, blah, blah. It should be blah, blah, blah. Little things like that will add up. And I know, like, if you Slack, you can Slack a Zoom link. If you want to, you can email it. Like, there's all sorts of different options along those lines, but I'm there with you.
Yeah. And so open lines of communication, everybody's, make sure your team knows that you appreciate their feedback. You want feedback. You want to be alerted if there seems to be a problem going on between team members. Maybe you're in the middle of it. Maybe you're just watching it start to explode, right? They need to step up and communicate and say, hey, I think we have a problem that needs to be addressed here. Don't wait till it becomes like a fire. Don't wait till it's like out of control. Let's nip it in the bud early and address it. So I encourage team members all the time to, hey, if you're struggling with working with somebody, let's dig in and figure out what caused this and how can we make it better and move forward. So have those open lines of communication with your team.
And I want to reply to that, but if I do, it's gonna, like, 8. I think if you do tip 8, it's more on what I want to say. So let's just jump into that.
All right. Tip number 8, be intentional to develop a great culture, like a culture where people don't even want to leave. Not only does it make it more fun to go to work every day and like interact and do things, but people are going to refer other people to come join your team. It's going to be like, so many people are having trouble hiring. Some of my firms aren't having that problem because literally other paralegals and associates are like, can we come join you? We get a ton of requests on our job board, people saying, hey, I want to come join your team as a coach, as a team member, as right. Like, we constantly get pinged for people wanting to come join the team. So really being intentional though about developing your culture. I'll be very candid. Well, first of all, everybody has a culture in their firm. Bottom line, it might not be the culture you want. It might have developed on its own, and you might need to fix part of that culture. And we've had to go in and fix that with some firms that ended up with some toxic people for a while, and it really turned the culture of the company, and we had to kind of turn it back around. So be really clear from the get-go. Jordan, I'm so passionate about it. This was one I did 2 years ago, Build Your Culture Masterclass. It's still in our Business Mastery College. People love it. It's like 10 weeks of 35-minute like class time with their admin. And so that they can like learn, what do I need to know and how do I do it? And it's like bite-sized nuggets on how to build your culture. People still like love that class. It's just, a little bit goes a long ways to really intentionally developing that culture.
Well, and from the marketing perspective, I always tell people, like, look, your internal culture is your external brand. Like, if you are trying to market as the go-to expert lawyer, and then people call and nobody knows how to answer the phone, or nobody seems happy to be there, like, that's not consistent. And so you get this weird break between it. The thing that I wanted to talk about before that also plays in here, I am of the belief that being client-centric is stupid. I think you should be employee-centric. That way your employees are empowered to be client-centric. So, like, if you're giving feedback and doing evaluations for them, have them give feedback and do evaluations for you so that you can be the best boss, so that you can put them in the best position, because they're the ones who are going to see clients 1,000 times more than you. And if the client, the customer's always right, maybe. I don't think the client's always right, because you need to have your employees know that you have their back, so they don't roll over, so they don't overpromise things, so they don't underdeliver, so they don't let your clients go crazy. on some of these things because they know that you have their backs.
Yeah. So that's actually in our internal policies, both at Up-Leveling Your Business and also back in my law firm days for our internal policies are the policies that for our team and internally what we live and breathe and abide by. And we had a clear, we've got your back policy. Like you are more important than any singular client. And if a client is disrespectful or abusive in any way, we will address it. And I've actually fired clients because of it, especially if it gets into any like racist or any kind of like, there are certain things that are just a no-go for me, like a hard stop. Like no client is going to do that to my team. But I also help the team recognize, listen, we're doing legal and medical malpractice defense. We're representing some people when they're feeling pretty low and they're lashing out, and learning how to deal with difficult people and learning how to recognize and address. With that said, we can politely say, listen, we need you to take a professional tone here. We can redirect the client to that. But I agree, it's about really supporting your team. It's one of our core values is our employees, and that we really support them, because without our team, we can't help the thousands and millions of people I want to help. So, but I also think that's important to the culture and who you add on. I've seen some people bring in some COOs or CFOs who weren't the right culture. And now there was a disconnect between somebody kind of lashing down and then the owner who's like, oh, it's okay. And that becomes a problem. So as you grow, so these are tips of, how to grow a firm that you're proud of. You've got to build the culture, but as people come in and you interview them, they need to fit your culture as well. They need to mesh with who you are and what you stand for.
I love that you phrase it that way, because look, you're gonna be hiring people and you're gonna have that candidate that looks phenomenal. They've got 15 years of experience, the great references, but they don't feel like the right fit. And I will tell you, I have regretted that hire 90% of the time. Whereas the time where it was like our longest tenured paralegal, we hired, she was working at SeaWorld before this. And just like the way that she explained the customer service that she would provide to somebody at SeaWorld is exactly what we wanted. And so we brought her on as she was finishing getting her paralegal certification, as she was finishing getting her college degree, as she was going through all those things. And she's been phenomenal because on day one, she had the right culture. On day 7, she didn't have the right experience, but that part came with the territory. The culture fit's not going to.
Yeah. So the other thing I'd say about culture is, and I encourage, one of the 7 buckets of marketing is brand and culture. Like every single week, the marketing team needs to be doing something to just showcase who we are as a company and the culture of our team. And so sometimes that's like sharing about our team builders that we do every month, or sharing about our give back campaigns that our team does every quarter, or like showcase who you are and what you stand for. And other clients will want to come join you. Other team members will want to come join you. Like so many people will see that and go, wow, what a great business to work with on so many levels. Like that when they see that culture, that unity with your team, you can't pay for that kind of marketing. Like that's like natural back end. Like people get to know you, like you, trust you by seeing the integrity of how you treat your team and the culture you've developed. So yes, it's a win on all levels.
I can't say enough about that. And it's usually the easiest content to create because so Gary Vee talks about document, don't create. So if you're already doing these things, you are documenting them. If you've got a ton of these employees, just doing an employee spotlight. Hey, here's, 2 truths and a lie with so-and-so. Here's everybody in the office talking about what they named their car. Like just going through things like that, you will have the weirdest, most genuine engagement with like that one random client or that one random referral source. And your employees are going to be more likely to engage with that post, to share it, to pass it along to their friends and family. Like it just becomes this just great, there's, tertiary wins or win-win-win or however you want to phrase it. in such a fun way on things that aren't nearly as overdone as the incredibly designed infographic and the 12-page carousel and the, whatever else. That being said, I think
Absolutely.
great example. This is a great example of number 9. So let's go into that one.
Tip number 9 is it's done is better than perfect. So this does tie in perfectly to what you were saying of, grab that snapshot of your team builder or a snapshot from your team Slack channel. Good is good enough, right? Done is better than perfect. You could recreate the whole thing, make it look all perfect, and that's going to take 2 hours, and you don't have 2 hours, right? Like sometimes if you wait for everything to be perfect, you're just not moving forward, right? You're not getting things done. And so let your team work with what you have, help you refine it as you go. Yes, sometimes you have the time frame and the bandwidth to make it perfect, but sometimes if you're growing fast, it's just we want to keep that high level of work product, but you've got to you got to move forward. Don't struggle to make it perfect. Move on to the next thing, and just be okay with the fact that the next iteration will be a little better. The next go around will be a little more improved, and you just keep building and growing.
See, I'll go a step farther. I am of the belief it will never be perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect. And if it was, there was that very brief moment in time where the stars align that will not happen again. And again, I say that from the standpoint of allow that to be liberating to you.
Yeah.
Allow that to just let you let go of it being perfect. I don't care if you do 1,000 webinars. If you really think about it, after the 1,000th webinar, there's that one line you're going to want to say differently. There's that one slide you want to punch up. There's that one, the giveaway was to the wrong restaurant. Just be okay with it and do it, and just do your best. That's the more important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of, if we get down on ourselves for every little thing we could have done, should have done, right? You waste so much mental energy in that space, and you just have to accept, listen, I did a great job. I got that accomplished. I finished that. I also think it ties in a little bit our theme of the year. Every year at Up-Leveling Your Business, we pick a different theme, and in the past, it's been experience life and seeing things from new perspectives. And this year, it's the year of resiliency. It's all about it's like a muscle that you have to exercise, right? It's to be resilient. There's a great quote about learning to thrive in the face of adversity, right? There are snowballs coming left and right at a business owner, and you got to learn to say, okay, so we're going to deal with it. What do we need to do? Okay, that sucks, but let's move forward, right? You learn to acknowledge it and then pivot and figure out what are you going to do to, there's no benefit of letting it ruin your day, letting it transform your whole emotional being. Quit wasting all that mental energy. Acknowledge whatever came at you. Be resilient and saying, okay, we're just going to pivot and go this other direction now. And life is a lot happier when you do. But listen, we all have to practice resiliency. It's something you have to keep. It's that exercise muscle, right? That muscle you've got to exercise. What's your favorite resiliency story? What do you think of?
I'm not even gonna go with a story because this is so dead on. In the most recent large-scale study about success in children, I've got a 4.5-year-old. I read just as much not necessarily parent raising, but how can we impact our kids? So they did this study. They followed these kids for, I don't know, whatever it was, 20, 30 years. And they found the number one indicator of success in children was not intelligence. It was not the financial resources of the parents. It was not a number of things. It was, they call it grit, same thing. It was resiliency. Yeah. Because life's going to throw so much shit at you. And if you are the one who's the kid who, my wife, valedictorian in her high school class, eventually got to, probably not even college, eventually got to law school. And there were other kids who were somewhat almost as smart as her. And it was earth shattering. And that's what happened to all these kids. And so whether you had the grit to get through the moment where you weren't the smartest person in the room, the prettiest person in the room, the strongest person, whatever it was. If you could get through that with resilience or with grit, that's how you're going to find success. Yeah. And so forget an anecdotal story. This is empirical evidence, empirical data. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. And I had not heard about that study, but I'm going to go seek it out, because I think it's something that when we have to teach it to someone else, like our kids, we learn so much more ourselves. We're like, oh, I guess I need to be doing this too, right? Like, you learn when you teach other things, and it makes us recognize that, crying and pouting about something for 6 hours isn't really going to help anything, right? Like, it just wasted mental energy. Might as well figure out, accept, and say, okay, the other thing I say in here is find the silver lining. There's got to be, even in the worst of moments, there's something good that comes out of what happened, and try to focus on that and say, well, at least it happened now at, a $50,000 loss than a $200,000 loss, or at least it happened now when it was only 2 people impacted instead of 600 people impacted, or whatever it might be. Find the silver lining. It helps you find a little gratitude and start moving forward and accepting. And so anyways, done is better than perfect. That's where we started with this.
It's true. It's true. And the resiliency, the grit to get through all this stuff is what's going to lead you to success. Before we do number 10, I want to do our next episode so we can end on number 10, because it's such a cool one. So don't leave us yet, or else you're going to miss it. Next week, so you'll be watching this on March 2nd. So next week, March 9th, we've got Julie Halunga coming on to talk about, it's all in the lingo, the language of leadership. So how do we talk, or really how do we communicate in a way that actually passes the right information of leadership, that actually leads people the right way? It'll be a super cool conversation. You can see that back here next week. With that though, we're, I don't know if you haven't saved the best for last, it's been close. So what is our final tip on the top 10 tips to help the most law firm owners possible?
Yeah, we saved this one for last, but it's also like it could have been number 1, because it really is one of those tips that it's in so many books, it's in so many different areas of life, and it's so simple. And tip number 10 is pay it forward. Always find ways to help others, and it's going to pay off for you. In Bob Burg's The Go-Giver, right? Give and then you get, and the more people that you can help, the more it's going to come back to you eventually. Like, there's books upon books on this. There's quotes, there's all these things, but at its core, it's just pay it forward, help another human being. Sometimes it's the art of a suggestion of their next step. Sometimes it's giving them a checklist, like to a young lawyer or someone. I jump on with lawyers all the time, even though they're not my ideal client. I just want to give back and give them a little step forward. And you know what? They'll refer me back business. They come back as clients in a couple years or in a couple months, right? Like, if you pay it forward, it's always going to return back to you.
The one thing that I want to add, because I 1000% agree, you just need to pay it forward from the place of it's the right thing to do, giving back to people. If you pay it forward from the standpoint of, I'm going to get something out of this, I'm going to get something back from this person's going to owe me, it just doesn't play the right way. Like, you go into it differently. It triggers that gut reaction from somebody else. Like, what's this person going for? You just really have to give to truly give, and you will get more than you could ever dream of.
Absolutely agree. 110%.
All right. So to everybody watching this, starting next week, you'll see Kristen in our Solutions for Lawyers by Lawyers Facebook group, going deeper in all these. That will culminate in our 1 hour live inside the group. So if you're not already joined in our Solutions for Lawyers by Lawyers group, now's the time. Although we've over 1,000 people and we've done like really nothing to push it. So clearly a lot of you are in there. So I hope that means we're just putting good content. That being said, what's the best way for somebody to connect with you if they know that they need that help to up-level their business, if they want to learn more, if they want the financial systems manual, they want they want to buy sorry, I forgot what your culture course.
Build Your Culture Masterclass.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Just come to our website, www.uplevelingyourbusiness.com, and you're welcome to add into the chat and we'll get a hold of you, or you can email Kristen at uplevelingyourbusiness. I'm happy, and say you heard this on this podcast or on this episode, and I will make sure you get taken care of by my team. And, we're truly passionate about helping people move forward. Sometimes it's just one little increment. Sometimes somebody says, like, Kristen, I'm just really struggling with X. And I'm like, here's a free item. There's tons of resources on our website for free, because we want people to start moving forward. And eventually they're going to get to the next part and the next part and the next part. So take that one little step, and every couple weeks be moving forward with building those systems and enjoy building that firm of your dreams.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Kristen. Thank you to everybody who watched and listened to this. We will see you back here next week. And if you've truly listened, I know you want to engage with Kristen more, so she'll be in our Facebook group over the next 10 weeks. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of Successful Attorney, please check us out at legalesemarketing.com, EASE.